Hello everyone, and welcome to the History of the Ancient World channel. Today we're diving deep into a topic that has fascinated humanity for millennia: politics and power in the ancient world. How did our ancestors organize themselves? Who held the power and how did they use it? The answers are as diverse and complex as the civilizations themselves. From the god-kings of Egypt to the democratic assemblies of Athens, the ancient world was a grand experiment in governance. It wasn't just about emperors and pharaohs, it was about the very fabric of society. Power could be inherited, seized by force, or even granted by the people. This constant struggle for control and order shaped empires, sparked wars, and created laws that, in some cases, still influence us today. Let's start in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Here in cities like Ur and Babylon, the concept of kingship first took root. Early rulers were often seen as chief priests, intermediaries between the gods and the people. Their power was absolute, their word was law, and their authority was divine. Think of Hammurabi of Babylon. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was a lawgiver. His famous code, inscribed on a massive stone stele, wasn't just a list of harsh punishments. It was a sophisticated attempt to create a just society, covering everything from property rights to family law. This was a monumental step. For the first time, power was tied not just to a person, but to a written, public set of rules that in theory applied to everyone. It was the beginning of the rule of law. Now, let's journey west to the banks of the Nile. Ancient Egypt presents a different model of power, one of incredible stability that lasted for nearly 3,000 years. The pharaoh was not just a king, he was a living god, the embodiment of Horus on earth. This divine status gave him unparalleled authority. He owned all the land, commanded the army, and was the supreme judge. The entire state bureaucracy, from the vizier down to the local scribe, existed to enact his will. The monumental pyramids weren't just tombs, they were powerful political statements, visible symbols of the pharaoh's immense power and his connection to the eternal. This system, known as a theocracy, ensured a remarkable degree of unity and continuity, allowing Egyptian civilization to flourish for centuries. But not all ancient societies followed this top-down model. Let's travel across the Mediterranean to ancient Greece, a world of independent city-states, or poleis. Here, political experimentation was rampant. You had oligarchies in places like Sparta, where power was held by a small group of elite citizens. The Spartan state was a formidable military machine, where every aspect of life was subordinated to the needs of the state and its army. The political structure, with its two kings, council of elders, and assembly, was a complex system of checks and balances designed to maintain stability and military readiness above all else. Then, of course, there was Athens, the birthplace of democracy. This was a radical idea. For the first time in history, power rested with the citizens. Not all residents, mind you, as women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded. But for the eligible male citizens, it was a system of direct participation. They could attend the assembly, vote on laws, and even serve in public office through a lottery system. Leaders like Pericles championed this system, arguing that it tapped into the collective wisdom of the people. Athenian democracy wasn't perfect. It could be chaotic and susceptible to demagogues. But the idea that ordinary people could and should govern themselves was revolutionary. And its legacy is arguably the most enduring political gift of the ancient world. Now, let's turn to an empire that learned from and ultimately surpassed the Greeks: Rome. The Roman Republic began with the overthrow of a king, instilling a deep-seated hatred of monarchy. Power was carefully divided between two consuls who were elected annually, and the powerful Senate, an assembly of the wealthiest and most influential families. This system, designed to prevent any one person from becoming too powerful, worked for centuries. It allowed Rome to expand from a small city-state into a Mediterranean superpower. The ideal Roman politician was a public servant, a man who put the good of the republic above his own ambition. Figures like Cincinnatus, who famously gave up dictatorial power to return to his farm, became legendary symbols of Roman virtue. However, as Rome's territory grew, the Republic's institutions began to crack under the strain. Vast wealth, massive slave-run estates, and powerful, ambitious generals like Marius, Sulla, and ultimately Julius Caesar tore the system apart. Decades of brutal civil wars followed. Caesar's ambition was a turning point. By marching his army on Rome and declaring himself dictator for life, he effectively destroyed the Republic. His assassination was a last-ditch effort to save it, but it was too late. The vacuum he left was filled by his adopted son, Octavian, who after another bloody power struggle emerged as Augustus, the first Roman emperor. The rise of the Roman Empire marked a profound shift. Augustus was careful. He maintained the illusion of the Republic, calling himself a first citizen rather than king. But in reality, all meaningful power, military, political, and religious, was concentrated in his hands. He brought peace and stability. The famous Pax Romana, after a century of chaos. This was the trade-off: liberty for security. For hundreds of years, the Roman Empire was the ultimate expression of centralized power, a vast multicultural state governed by one man and his massive bureaucracy, held together by the might of its legions and a shared Roman identity. Across the globe, other models of power were evolving. In ancient China, the concept of the mandate of heaven dominated political thought. The emperor, the son of heaven, had a divine right to rule, but only as long as he ruled justly and maintained harmony in the world. If he became corrupt or incompetent, and natural disasters or rebellions occurred, it was seen as a sign that he had lost the mandate. This gave a powerful legitimacy to dynastic changes. The Qin dynasty, for example, unified China under its first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, a ruthless legalist who centralized power, standardized everything from writing to currency, and built the Great Wall. His rule was brutal but effective. However, his dynasty collapsed shortly after his death, proving that power without the perceived consent of heaven and the people was fragile. The Han dynasty that followed learned from the Qin's mistakes. They adopted Confucianism as the state ideology, which emphasized morality, duty, and respect for authority. Power was still centralized in the emperor, but it was tempered by the advice of a highly educated class of scholar officials who earned their positions through rigorous examinations. This created a relatively stable and meritocratic system of governance that would influence China for 2,000 years. It was a sophisticated blend of absolute imperial authority and a professional, non-hereditary bureaucracy. What can we learn from all this? The ancient world shows us that there's no single answer to the question of how to govern. Each system, from the divine pharaohs and Athenian democracy to the Roman Republic and the Chinese Mandate of Heaven, was a product of its unique historical circumstances, values, and challenges. They struggled with the same fundamental questions we face today. How do we balance freedom and security? Who gets to decide? How do we prevent the abuse of power? The history of politics in the ancient world is a story of great thinkers, ambitious leaders, and the endless quest for a stable and just society. It's a story of trial and error, of brilliant successes and catastrophic failures. By studying these ancient models of power, we gain a deeper understanding not only of the past, but also of the foundations of our own political world. The echoes of these ancient debates can still be heard in the halls of power today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the politics and power of the ancient world. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the History of the Ancient World channel for more deep dives into the civilizations that shaped our story. Let me know in the comments which ancient political system you find most interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.